Hello everybody, the Nameless Narcissist here once again. Simple man diagnosed with MPD, giving you the facts about narcissistic personality disorder and things that go on in my head. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe, but keep in mind, I'm no clinician, so I can only speak to my own experience and the research that I read about. Alright, so I took the time today to look at a couple videos about Dr. Romney. Well, not about her, but that she made. And before I start this, I want to point out that I do not think that, Dr. Romney is evil or has bad content or anything like that. I have a little bit more of a nuanced view where I think she's very important in certain aspects of recovery especially from abusive relationships. And to a certain extent, relationships with pathological narcissists. That being said, I do have a few issues with how she presents herself, especially because she doesn't mention the fact that there is a endpoint of obsessing over this stuff. Your healing doesn't end at kind of that anger and needing to get out of that relationship and stuff like that. So these two videos that I watched, I think really do illustrate some of the issues I do have with her, while also the things I appreciate about her. This first one is, what do you do when the narcissist has a valid point? Which even the title the title is what intrigued me, right? But there was an implication there that I didn't like. The idea that that somebody having a valid point can be colored by their narcissism. You know what I mean? But she did have some good points though. You shouldn't forget the other things that happen in a toxic relationship just because they did have a valid point one time. And that is a trap that a lot of people fall into. You're remembering the good parts and you forget the bad ones because the good parts are, good. Let me refer to my notes that I wrote down. She also touched on the fact that this shouldn't be a reason to doubt yourself more. I completely agree with that. Again, she has some very good advice, especially in the process of getting out of a toxic or abusive relationship and in the things immediately following. But then she did make something I really didn't like towards the beginning of it, where she talked about narcissistic masking. And she implied, and I think a lot of people imply this, so I'm not exactly blaming her for it, that people like narcissists mask or cover up that they are inherently bad and abusive people. She doesn't use the word bad, right? But she implies that beneath the mask is anger and abuse. And that's not true. Anger is a defense mechanism too. If anything, anger is part of the mask. I would say that it's the last layer of the mask before you get to the real broken ass parts of us. You know what I mean? And so I didn't like that part. I didn't like that at all. But anyways, the other things that she said were mainly it's just, it really does come down to the things I have an issue with is the fact that it's almost dehumanizing for narcissists. And it does discourage narcissists to get help, because there's a lot of narcissists who aren't physically abusive, who aren't, super toxic and stuff like that, or their defense mechanisms aren't so horrible that it would result in a presentation like Dr. Romney talks about. And she acknowledges this in another video I'm about to talk about, where the presentation of the stereotypical arrogant, straight up abusive narcissist isn't the most common one. Regarding this though, I didn't think it was a bad video. I really think that a lot of people can benefit from videos like that. It's just, it feels like she doesn't come to the logical conclusions about narcissism and speaks out against generalizing, but generalizes narcissists a lot, I'll say. That's not to say that if you're in a relationship with a narcissist that is toxic, that you should stick through it because we're not monsters, but more so the fact that we aren't monsters. And there's some relationships that can be good, even with an unaware narcissist. It just ultimately depends on what you're willing to put up with and how willing they are to work with you, I would say. Her other video was, Are Narcissists Bad People? And this one I think I liked less, right? Because, she made some really good points, right? That I very much agree with. She pointed out there's a lack of nuance in looking in terms of good or bad. And then when your narcissist is like acting in a toxic or bad way, that you're forgetting the pattern of behaviors that occurred beforehand and you want to label them as bad or good. I completely agree, there's a lack of nuance in that, but she doesn't take that to the logical conclusion of we aren't bad people. We're people who are mentally ill and we're sick. And I get her audience is focused towards people who are, recovering from toxic relationships, and I can completely respect that. But the issue is that she's a clinician. And that's not an issue. But that she has credentials that people take very seriously. And the fact that she is relying on narcissistic people as opposed to toxic people makes an image of narcissists in their head as this homogenous group of abusers and evil people. And the fact that she touched on this topic I found kind of funny, because if you watch her videos, that is the conclusion you're going to come to. Don't get me wrong. Again, as I said, that can be an important part of the healing process. Like, I wouldn't say hate, but anger. Anger towards the person, thinking that they are to some degree evil. I wouldn't say evil, that's a little black and white, right? It's funny, she said that there's a lack of nuance in it, and earnestly what she was talking about is black and white thinking, right? And how that's not good a lot of the times. And she points out how it can be hard for people to get help when they view it through that lens. No, I agree, because you're going to be looking at them through either, a good or bad lens. And if you have them in a good lens in the moment, or you keep remembering the fact that this person was really nice this one time, they're a good person. If it's a super toxic relationship, that might encourage you to not go and be like, I need to leave this, or maybe enter therapy because issues that you have now because of that. And she also pointed out that relationships with narcissists can be good if they're getting their supply and their needs met and stuff like that. And which I agree with, but then she was like, but as soon as that stops, you're going to be subject to abuse. And I'm like, no, that's not. See, again, it's funny because she's speaking out against black and white thinking, right? But she is viewing narcissists in a black and white way. That's not necessarily the case. And if it is the case, usually, I would argue, it's about the emotional dysregulation component. It's like, oh, my self-esteem is crashing because I'm not getting the supply I want. Well, self-esteem juice, by the way, or my needs met, etc., and they're lashing out at literally everything and can't handle their own emotions, and that affects you badly, which is still a valid reason to leave a toxic relationship. But it's not that's not always inherently abusive or inherently toxic, right? It would probably be exhausting. I agree. But again, it is an absolute thinking, I would say. And then the thing that I really, really did not like is she pointed out that some researchers and people think that there's a witch hunt about narcissism, and thinking about them in good and bad terms, it validates those people and makes them think that, and stops people from seeing the reality of narcissistic abuse and how bad narcissists are. That, I think, is what made me want to make this video, because I think that take, especially coming from a clinician, was not even ethical. The fact that she has an issue with the fact that people kind of acknowledge that the term narcissist is overused nowadays. It's portrayed in a way that is more bad than it actually is a lot of the time. Don't get me wrong, there are some narcissists who are evil, but there's some who are genuinely good people who try their best to be good people. And the fact that she said something, I remember today I was literally going through Reddit and I saw a post on a community for narcissistic people, and somebody was like, my diagnosis makes me feel like a monster. We already feel like we're bad people, and the narrative around narcissism only enables that feeling. People argue that narcissists never seek help and they never admit that they're narcissists. Who is going to admit they're a narcissist when the only thing people say about narcissism is that they're evil? That just really bothered me, especially since she's somebody with credentials, and she should be talking about this. Maybe not always, right? Because I acknowledge her place in the in somebody's recovery process, but she should come at narcissists with a more empathic view, in my mind. It's like, it's no excuse, but they are sick people and they need help. But it feels like that she doesn't even want to acknowledge that portion of it. That's just my take, though. You guys can tell me if you agree or disagree. This is not an absolute view of mine, and this is not even talking to Dr. Romney's character in any way at all. It's more of just, I had issues with these videos, and these were videos that were made a while ago, so maybe she's changed her narrative. I don't watch her videos very often. When I do, it's sometimes out of self-hate, I'll be honest, or self-hate or grandiosity, because I'm like, oh yeah, I am that impactful. But yeah, I feel like, I'm not saying that, again, these aren't videos that are bad. I just think they could have done better in a way that encourages people like me to get help, and so they don't hurt as many people. And I think that is the logical conclusion to go to. Support the people who are hurt by them. Lead them through that period of hate and anger. Again, maybe not hate, but hope that eventually they can recognize narcissists who as they are, broken and in need of help. Because then we won't hurt as many people anymore. Whatever. Hope you all have a good day. I lost my glasses for a second. If you like this, please like, comment, and subscribe. But, take your fucking meds, please.